Hello guys, welcome back to Technical Alphas. Today we are going to be starting a series on PHP Create, and it's going to be a two-part series. So this is part 1 and there's going to be part 2 very soon. Please watch the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. So the question is, what is CRUD? What is PHP Create? In PHP Create, we are going to be seeing CRUD in full, which stands for create, retrieve, update and delete. So we're going to be creating data, that's inserting data into the database, retrieving data back to the front end, and users can use the data and see it in the way they would like to see it, update it and change wherever we feel like it should be changed, and then we can also delete it. So we're going to be seeing all these functions using PHP language. So please watch the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. The channel name is Technical Alphas. This is going to be a very good series for you. So if you're not good with PHP and you haven't built any system with PHP, this is going to be an introduction, and you're going to get the basic knowledge you need to be doing all these functionalities, just because you need some prior knowledge in certain fields. And these fields include, we have HTML, and in HTML we are going to be using tables and forms and lists, but mostly we are going to be using tables and forms. So you have to get to know how we use tables before this tutorial, and you have to check out how we use forms mostly in HTML, because we are going to be creating a form and how to send data to the database using forms on the front end side. So you need this basic knowledge with HTML. If you don't worry, but if you don't have this knowledge, I'm going to put some links for you for HTML in my tutorial, this very one, so you can check them out before continuing this video. See those videos, then get some basic knowledge. But if you're good with that, we continue. We also have CSS. This stands for cascading style sheet. HTML stands for hypertext markup language, but CSS is cascading style sheets. So in this one, you basically need to know the syntax for CSS, in which it includes selectors, properties and values. So if you're good with this, well and good. But if you're not, you can still stick with the video, but it will disturb you somehow. It's better you get some basic knowledge of CSS. It won't be so long. You can get another video, go through it, learn a basic of CSS, how to use selectors, properties and values, then you can continue. Or else you can continue with the video and see how it works. Then we also have SQL, which is structured query language, or some people call it SQL. Now in SQL, we have DMLs, DDLs and DQLs, which stands for database manipulation language, database definition language and database query language. So if you're good with this, we are well to go. But if you're not, I have videos in the link in the description. Check them out. There too, you're going to see how to use alter commands, how to change the name of the table, how to delete tables, how to create tables, how to do other operations with tables, and also how to insert, delete, update and do all other stuffs with the database and with the data in the database. So you check them out. I'm going to put those links in the descriptions below for SQL, and you're going to get a basics of SQL and how to use some functions with SQL. So before seeing this video, you get that knowledge, and when you come back, everything is going to be flowing very, very easy. So lastly, we have PHP, the language itself. Here you just need to know the syntax and how to use the variables, how we declare them, how we assign values to them. So we are going to be using most of this in this tutorial. But if you're good with most of this and with all of this, you're good to go. So the question is, what are we going to be doing? The first thing we are going to be doing, we are going to create a dashboard. And the dashboard is going to be created using Bootstrap framework and HTML with CSS. That's why you need HTML and CSS prior knowledge. So the first thing is a dashboard. What's a dashboard? You'll see it when it comes. It's going to be like a framework we're going to be following. We're going to build a dashboard, make it beautiful, and it's going to help us with all our functionalities. Second, we're going to build a form. A form is also going to be using Bootstrap classes to design it and make it look good, and we're also going to use HTML for the skeleton and CSS for the beautifying. But the Bootstrap classes are going to help us, because Bootstrap is simply predefined classes of CSS and JavaScript. So it's mostly of JavaScript and CSS. So we are going to link this to our project, but it's going to be downloaded. Okay, so if you're interested in learning Bootstrap as a whole, you can put that in the comment section, so I can do a tutorial for that. But if you're not interested, well and good. we can continue. If you're interested, you just put that in the comment section and I'll see how I'll work it out for you guys. Then lastly, we are going to create a database. This database is going to be created using MySQL, and in this database we're going to have tables, and these tables are going to be holding data. Now we are going to use the XAMPP server, which is cross-platform for Apache, MySQL, Perl and PHP, and this is going to help us to create the databases and how to manage it. And we're also going to use Sublime Text for coding. We're going to write the code using Sublime Text. You're free to use any other code editor, but in my case I'll be using Sublime Text. It's because it's the one I've been using for a very, very long time. So without further ado, let's get started. So after installing XAMPP server and Sublime Text, come to local disk C where you installed your Windows operating. Now you're going to see the XAMPP folder here. Enter it. Come to htdocs. This is where we're going to be putting our project. So I've already created my project here. It's PHP Create, and this is where we are going to be saving all the files that we are going to be doing for our system. So inside here I've put my Bootstrap folder. I downloaded it, then I put it here, and I'll also show you how we do this in the Bootstrap course. But in this case I've already put the Bootstrap, so we're going to link it to our pages. I'll show you how we do that in front there. Now inside here we have CSS and JavaScript, so we are going to link these two to our projects. I'll show you how we do that. So without wasting time, I've already finished this, so even if I close here, now I need my text editor. In this case I'm going to be using Sublime Text. After opening up Sublime Text, come to open folder. Now we are going to open the folder that we are going to be using, which is PHP Create. Then click select folder. You see on your left, I've already done what? I've already opened up a palette where I'm going to be getting my files and where my files are going to be created. So the first page I'm going to create, it's the index page. So in this case I'm going to hit Ctrl N on my desktop and Ctrl S to save. And in this case I'm going to look for the very directory where I want to save my work. So I'm going to come to XAMPP, I come to htdocs, I come to PHP Create, and here I'm going to name my file. In this case it's going to be index.php. Every PHP code you write, the file has to end with an extension .php. I hope we are together. So in this case I'm going to save this .php. This is going to be the first page to load every time my project is open. So in this case I'm going to save this, and with no wasting time, it's already created, and now you can see my pages here and everything is okay. So we're going to create the dashboard first, and the very first thing we're going to do is use HTML. So I'm going to write HTML, hit tab, then the syntax for HTML has come. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start using my Bootstrap. So now we are going to link our Bootstrap. So then the first step we're going to do is write the link tag, hit tab, hit it again. Then here we have to write the directory. First of all, you're going to write Bootstrap. So inside Bootstrap we're going to go to CSS, and in CSS we're going to get bootstrap.css. So next we are going to connect JavaScript for Bootstrap, and then we are going to say script, hit tab, hit it again. Then here script we are going to write source, which is src, hit enter. Now we are going to write Bootstrap. This time it's going to be JS for JavaScript, and then we are going to link bootstrap.js. Here we link Bootstrap to our page. So the next thing we are going to do is use Bootstrap classes. Remember, Bootstrap divides the page into 12 equal parts. Hope you noticed that. Divides the page into 12 equal parts. So we're going to divide our page into two. One side where we're going to be putting the form, and the other side where we're going to be retrieving the form and doing all other operations. I'll show you how we do that. In the first thing we're going to do is call for the container field. So we're going to say div class container fluid. Hit tab again, hit enter. So here, this is a Bootstrap class. I want you to get used to these classes. So the next thing we are going to do is to open up a div class, and it's going to be a row. So in rows, and every row has 12 columns, those 12 equal divisions. Okay, you can make as many rows as you want, but in every row there are 12 equal columns. So in this tab, hit enter. Now here I'm going to divide this page into two. My page is going to divide it. The first will take the first 3 columns, and then the second part will take the remaining 9 columns to make 12. So I'm going to say div class column medium 3. I'm taking the first 3. Then I'm going to copy this. Oh, sorry. Then I'm going to make this 9. So my page is divided into 12 parts, one which is taking 3 and the other is taking 9. I hope you understand. So if we run this, let's run this and see how it looks like. So to run this, first open up your XAMPP as it is like this. Start, it's going to be like this. So you're going to start Apache, then start MySQL, then click admin. So here it is. Now what I want to first run my project. So up here I'm going to write localhost, then the name of the folder that is in local disk C, which is PHP Create. Hit enter. This is my page, this is my project, but nothing is being shown. Let me first show you. We come back to the code. Now we are going to give this CSS in order to differentiate. Now these first 3 columns, we are going to give them a dark color. So we're going to open up CSS up here in the head section, and we're going to say style. Hit enter, hit tab, hit enter. So here we're going to write class column MD3. Now this is why you need prior knowledge with CSS. So this is our selector. Now the color, so it's going to be background color, and in this case I'm going to use RGB, red, green, blue, and here I'm going to use 31. Here it's going to be 30, and here let me use 60. Let's save this, and let's give it a height too. Let's say min height is going to be 20 viewport height. So we save this. Let's check it out. If I come back, you'll see now these are the first 3 columns. The remaining space to reach this side are the 9 columns. So let's give the 9 columns another color too. The 9 columns. So we come here. Let's say class column MD9. There were 9, yes. Let's give them a color too. Background color. I'm just going to use, let me use lavender blush, and in this case the height will remain the same because I've already given it to the first 3. So let's save this and check it out. So if I come back, sorry, so if I come back and I refresh, you see that the lavender blush has taken the other 9 columns. This is our row that combines these two. The row has been divided into 2, the first 3 and the remaining 9. So we need them to cover the whole page up to down here where it's still showing white. So how do we go about this? What we are going to do, we're going to come to the row itself, because the row has been divided into 2. Come to the row and say style. We're going to be using inline. Now in this case we're going to height, and we're going to give it the minimum. Let's say minimum height, the one at which it must start, and it's going to be 100 viewport height. It's going to cover the whole screen. Let's save this, and then let's run and see. If we refresh, you see that it has covered everything from top to bottom. Now this is how we start with our dashboard. Here we are creating our dashboard. Now I'm going to remove the lavender blush because we are going to need a color white where it is, but but we're going to remain with this other color, the RGB, on the first three. So let's remove the lavender blush. We don't need this. The next thing we are going to do is, now I think we should have used, continue with this. Now let's use some text. We come to the first three column. Let's give it a title. Now here I'm going to say div class model. This is a class for headers, so we need a heading here, model header. So let's say admin, something like this. Let's give it a H, say admin panel. So let's save this and check it out. Let's check this out. Refresh. Now it's not being shown because of the color, so let's give it. So we come up here in CSS and say H2. We give it a color. So let's say color. I'm with it white smoke. And I save this. So if I refresh, the color has come. Now I need to give it a font. Let's say font family, and I'm going to use Montserrat. Let's save this and check it out. So now we can go and create our form from here, but let us first put this heading in the center. So we come back to our text editor. Let's put the H2 in the center. So we're going to say text align center. So let's save this and we go back and check. This has not worked, but let me try this. Let me try this. Margin 20 pixels. Save this. If I refresh, yeah, it's now in the center. So the next thing we are going to do, we are going to create our form. So let's create the form. We come back here after our heading here. So we're going to go to the body, div class model body. Hit tab, hit it again. Then here we're going to create our form. So the first thing we're going to do is to create a form container. So we're going to say div class form container. Hit enter. Now we're going to create our form. Hit tab twice, enter. Now we have some attributes in the form. So the first one is going to be action, and for now let's leave it empty. The next thing is going to be the method, and we are going to be using post. And lastly, it's going to be the encryption type, which is enc type, and we're going to use part / form data. After this, we are all set to start working on our form. So in this case, we are going to be getting user input and sending it to the database and bringing back the user details. So in my case, we're going to get the first name, the last name, the email. We're going to get like four fields. Let's put even a username. So the first one is going to be the first name, but using Bootstrap, we're going to be using form group. So we're going to say div class form group. Hit tab twice. Then the label for this is going to be the first name. We're going to be recording the first name. And here we're going to get input. In order to enter the name, it's going to be text format, and we're going to name it f name. And using Bootstrap, we're going to give it a class, and this class is going to be form control. Before we go any further, let me first show you what this does. Let's save and check it out. So if I refresh my page like this, you see what it does. And if I remove, let me first remove the class. Let's first remove this class from control. Let's save and refresh again, and you see. So if I refresh, you'll see how it will be showing. Now we also need a background that will show our text, so give a form a background. And in my case, I'm going to give it to the form container. So I'm going to say class form container, and I'm going to give it background, a background color which is going to be FB. We'll save this. Let's check it out. So if I refresh here, you'll see how it will be showing. Now this is the form container, but we need it to be covering everything. So let's come here and give the form itself. Let's come and say form. Now the form, we're going to give a form height. Now which height are we going to give? Let me say 50 VH auto. So it starts with 50 VH and then it adds on. Or we can say our minimum height will be 50 VH, which means that's our starting point. So our minimum height will be 50 VH. And come back and I refresh. You see now it has grown, but things are on top. They are on top. There is no padding. So let's give it a padding. Let's give our form padding. So if I come here and I say padding, and I give it 20 pixels, and I save this, we check it out, and I refresh. Now you see everything is padded well, and things are not at the exact beginning. But let me give my class, my bootstrap class back, which is form control. So if I uncheck again, now you see how it looks like. So I'm going to repeat this for the last name, the username, the email. I think we're only going to use those for this case to show you what to do. Now in this case, the first name is done. Go for the last name. So I'm going to copy this. Now here we're going to do for last name. Here it's going to be L name. The name for this field is going to be L name. And I'm going to repeat the same process. Now this time it's going to be the username. The username, and here it's going to be uname. And here we're going to put the email. This is going to be email. And I'm also going to name it email. And let's also take the city. So let's record the city too. In this case here, I'm going to put the city. And let's name this also city, the input type. Be using this name when sending data to the database. That's how it's important. And we need all these fields to be required so that they can't skip them. So we're going to put required. Put here required to required. Come back here, space. So we can save this. Now if we check, refresh here, our fields have come, and now we only need the button that will be pressed for the data to go. So we need to create the button itself. Now this is how Bootstrap beautifies the work. So in this case, I'm going to say Ctrl V. Now I'm going to remove everything and I'm putting the button, but we needed the form group. So I'm going to remove this and I say button. Hit tab twice. Now the button will be saying submit. You can put anything, but this button has to be the type. The type is submit, and also needs a name. And in this case, the name we're going to say submit. But if we save this, and check out, you're going to see, if you save this and check out, you're going to see the button is not beautiful. So to beautify this, we're going to use CSS. So we're going to use a class for button. Sorry, we're using Bootstrap. So a class for buttons in Bootstrap is going to be button primary. But we shall see more of these in course. In this case, I'm just showing you what you can use for now. So when we check out, you'll see how beautiful the button will look. So let's continue. Let us first check out the form and check out how it's going to be working for us, and we see what's next, and we send the data to the database. Watch the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. So now in our next step, we are going to be creating the database and the table to which the form will be sending the data. So let's come here, localhost php myadmin, so hit new, then let's create our database. In this case, our database is going to be PHP Create, and let's hit create. And now we are going to create the table to which the data will be sent. Let's name this users, then hit go. Now in this case, we are going to have an ID field which will work as our primary key. Then we shall have a first name, our last name, the username, and then the username, let's add one here, and then the city. So the city is going to be a variable character, not an integer. Same to the users, first name and the last name, yeah. But the ID is going to be an integer, so let's leave that. Let's give the rest 100 because they are variable characters. 100 as in length. So the ID is going to be our primary key and auto increment, so you come here and make that possible. Then later we save this table. Now in this case, we have finished creating our table, but it has no content. As you can see, has no content. So let's create a connection between our form on the interface and our database. So let's come back to the code, and here I'm going to create a new file. So let me save this, and I'm going to call it config.php. Now in this case, I'm going to write code that is going to connect to the what? To the database. So first of all, I'm going to have 4 variables, which is the server, and the server is going to be localhost, and I'm going to have the user, and the user is going to be root, third I'm going to have the password, and this is going to be empty by default, and lastly is going to be my database, and the database is PHP Create. So after this, I create a connection down here, so I'm going to write a new variable called connect, and this is going to be MySQL connect, and here I'm going to drop the other variables respectively in their order. So the first one is going to be the server. You can copy them and paste them, you can write them also. So here I'm going to put the password, and lastly it's going to be my database, or die in case it fails. So say failed to query database. So outside this, I'm going to say MySQL error. Yeah. So I put this and I save this. So I'm done with my connection, this config.php. So the next thing we are going to do is to create the code that will send data from the form to the database. So this one, the config will do the connection, then data will be sent. So let's create a new file. So it's going to be process.php. Hit enter. So in this case, I'll come back to my form as I had done before. Now in action, where there's action in the form, when you're creating the form, now we're going to put process.php because this will process the data. I hope you guys understand now the use of action. So when the form is clicked, it will go to process.php and execute what is in process.php. And the first thing we're going to do is to be sending data to the database. Now what we are going to do next is that we are going to send the data to the database. The first thing, let me write the PHP syntax. Now we're going to include the config file in this file so that we connect to the database. Now in this case it's going to be config.php. So after this, we have successfully connected. Now the first thing is to check whether the button is clicked. So if it's clicked, then we can send the data. So I'm going to use the isSet function. Then I use the super global variable post, which is this one. Then the name of the button. Now we have to know the button name here, which is submit. The button name in the form, it is submit. So here I'm going to write submit. Now we are good to go. So we are going to make a variable for each data that is going to be sent from the form. The first one is going to be the first name, as you see here. The second one is going to be the last name, the username, email, and then the city. Now for this case, I had forgotten to put the email in the database, so let's put that very fast and then we continue. As you see, in the database we have first name, last name, username, and city, but we are missing the email. So the email is after the username. So after the username we have to put the email. So let me come back to the structure here, and so we add one after username. So we add one after username, and that one is going to be email. In this case I'm going to put email, and email is going to be varchar, and it's going to be 100. So that's it. Let me save this. And for the case of email, it had to be unique because two people can't have the same email, but we shall do that in another tutorial. Let's first work on this and these other functions. So when we come back this way, so we're going to make a variable for first name, another variable for last name, and all other fields. So let's create a variable for first name, and this will be, let's copy this, paste it here, put a semicolon. Now let's remove the submit, and we repeat all this for 5 times. 2, 3, 4, and then 5. The second one is going to be the last name. Then down it's going to be the username. Let's call it uname. Then this is going to be the email. So here I'm going to put email, and lastly it's going to be the city. So we have created all the variables for the 5 fields. I hope we are together, guys. Now the next thing is we are going to get the name of each. So the name for first name is fname, as you see, it's fname, and the name for last name, the name is lname, and for username is uname, email is email, and city is city. So we put the names here. So for first name is fname, for last name is lname. Fill out all these. For username is uname, for email it's email, and lastly for city it's also city. So we are good to go. We've finished this part. Now the next thing we are going to do is to send the data to the database. So let's create a variable that's going to do that. So let's say insert, and this one is going to be insert into. Now we put the table name, which is users. Now which columns do we want to insert data into? The first column, we come back to know these columns, we come back to the database, and in our database when we browse, you see these are the columns we want to insert data into without the ID column, because for it it's auto increment. Let's copy all these, come back to our code, and let's paste them. Now after this I'm going to put a comma, 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 and then after city it's also going to be a comma here. Now here we're going to put the values, and now the values are going to be carried in the variables, and variables are going to be in single quotes. So the first variable is going to be fname, second variable is going to be the lname, so let's carry this here. Same thing here, it's going to be uname, then the fourth is going to be the email, and lastly it's going to be the city. Variable city. So let me clear up this space. Then I can terminate this. Now let's execute this. So I'm going to say my variable query is going to be MySQLi underscore query, and this is going to carry the connection variable from the config file. That's why you included the config file into process. Then we also carry the insert variable. So here we are good to go, but we have to check if it is successful. It should take us back to the form or to the dashboard, and if it fails, it should show us that it has failed. So we check if variable query is successful. So it should redirect us. So header, put this location. Now we want it to take us back to the dashboard, which is the index page. So it should take us to the index.php page. Else, if the other condition fails, this one should be able to show. So it should echo something. Something went wrong. So let's save this and let's test it out. Right now data should be able to go to the database, well and good. So first name I'm going to say Alphas. Last name I'm going to say Simon. Username, let me use Ghost. Email, let me use alphas@gmail.com. Then the city I'll say Mbale. So let's submit this and see. So now as you see, our data has come to the database, and now you see ID is 1, first name is Alphas, last name is Simon, username Ghost, email alphas@gmail.com, and our city is Mbale. So here we are able now to send data into the database. That's first step done. So the next step is to bring back this data to our interface. For example, let's say we are here we are seeing the form. Now in this white space here, we have to be able to see all the data that is in the database. How do we do that, and how are we gonna do that? That's our next step. So hang in there. Let's go to retrieving data to the database. As you know, the tutorial is about PHP Create, which stands for create, retrieve, update and delete. So we are now able to create data that it goes to the database. Now let's retrieve it back so that we can view it. So that's our next step. So let's come back to the code, come to the index page, and then scroll down. Now in the 9 columns of the row, as I showed you, let's come back here. This, where you see admin panel and the form, those are the first 3 columns. Now the remaining white space are the 9 columns. Now in these 9 columns, it's where we want to see the retrieved data. So let's come back to our code, and then everything we're going to be doing now is going to be in the 9 columns. I hope you guys understand. So inside the 9 columns, I'm going to start writing the code that will retrieve the data. But first of all, we need some introduction. For example, I can put a header. Let's say div class header. Let me say model header. Now in this, I'm going to put a heading. It's going to be an H1, and I'm going to write overview. So let's save this and let's check it out. Now you see the word overview here, and it's showing in a bold color and it's in heading. So let's give it a background. Let's give this overview a background. Now we are going to be giving the whole class model header background. So let's come inside here, say style, say background, now let's come to H1 and let's give H1 a color here. So it's a H1. H1, let's give it a color white. So it's a color, say FFF. Let's save this. You see now it's a color white, but it's not completing all the ends. But let's go with this. I can give this and continue with this. Now we are going to be bringing back all the data from our database, okay? And to make this possible, we are going to be using tables. So for this case, we are going to need a body section. So we're going to say div class model body. For this case, we're going to open up a table in which we're going to be calling our data back. So let's create our table. Now in this case, we are going to have rows in the table. So we're going to open up our table row. Now this table row is going to be having headings. So let's say table headings. The first table heading is going to be showing the first names. First name, okay, then we copy this, and they're going to be 5. So this is going to be the last name, the username, the email, then lastly the email, then lastly it's going to be the city. So let's save this and check it out. So if we refresh, you can see our table, and this is these are the headings, but they are not well formatted. So let's come back here to the table. Now table, let's give it a class. There's a bootstrap class for tables. Now let's say table. So now let's give it a class. And in this case, a bootstrap class for table, we're going to say class table bordered table striped So let's save this and check it out. Now you see this is what it has become, and right now our headings are now looking better and they are well spaced because of the bootstrap class for tables. And we can also give it a background. Okay, like this table row, we can say BG color. We're giving it a background color. So let's say something like, should I say lime? Let's check this out whether it will work out. Yeah, this might work out. Lime is not bad, so that will check out. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to open up another table row, but this table row will be calling data from the database. Hope you are together, guys. This will be calling data from the database. So we're going to open up PHP here. Now we are opening up PHP, and then we are going to select the stuff that is in the database. So we are going to say, the first thing we are going to do is we are going to call the config file. We're going to include it here. So let's include the config file which connects to the database, and the next thing is to select the data that is already in the database. So let's give that a variable, and this is going to be MYSQL query, and after this I'm going to select everything. So I'm going to first connect, then I select all from users. Users is the database table we're having, so we can terminate here. Then we need another variable. Let's call this user. The other one was users, this is user. So now we are fetching. Hope you understand. So MySQL fetch here. I'm going to say ASOC. What are we fetching? We are fetching the upper variable, which is variable users, and we're going to fetch this in a while loop. So before this I should put a while loop. So I say while, open this, and then I put it here, enter. So everything is going to be in a while loop. Now the next thing I'm going to do is echo everything. Now the first thing I'm going to echo is the table row, because we're opening up another table row. I'm going to say table row, then I close this here, I echo again, now let me close it here. Now inside this table row I'm going to open up table data for each. So this, this is going to be table data, and in this table data I'm going to close it here. Now in between here is where I'm going to call for the first name. Now let me do like this, then I concatenate, I use the variable user which is fetching, then I use these braces, then I'm calling for the first name. So if I save this and check it out, it should be bringing all first names. As you see, it has brought alpha. So even if I include any other first name, so let's register someone else here very fast. Let's say John. Let's put here Mike, John Mike. Yeah, that's the name. Let's put JM as the username. email, let's say jm@gmail.com, then city, let's say Kampala. If I submit, you see that John will also be showing here, but we are only showing the first name. The remaining details have not yet been called. So let's call even for other details that are there for these people. Let's come back to the code. Now, so far we are calling the first name. Now let's call for the remaining data. So here, let's call for the last name too. Now the username, and I usually forget. Now here it's the email, and lastly it's going to be the city. Let's save this and check it out. So if I refresh, you see all the details for these two people. So for this case, we are able to now send data to the database, and we can retrieve it and see it on our interface. Now the remaining part is to update and delete data, and to be able to modify what is already in the database to make it what we want it to be. In case we send something with an error to the database, we can update it or edit it. Then we can also delete what we don't want. So that's our next step, but in this case it's going to come in the second part. Allow me to stop here for the first part, and this will call for the second part where we're going to be doing the editing and the deleting. Now I'm ending the first part, and I hope to see you guys. Comment, and then I see where I can change, where you guys are getting disturbed, and we'll see what to do. Shalom.